I'm your host, Brent here. If you haven't checked out the first episode, check it out. In this episode, we'll be diving deep into what it was like living on board a submarine, the day-to-day operations, staying watch, how we ate, where we ate, everything all about submarines. Let's dive in. When I first got to the submarine, it's a lot bigger than what you imagine. Fast attack submarines I was on, it's about roughly the size of a football field, like roughly like 350 feet, and it's 3 stories tall, like 35 feet tall. Way bigger than what I thought it would be, and it's way bigger in dry dock. Like whenever it's outside of the dry dock, or out of the water, I should say, inside the dry dock, and you're standing next to it, it looks even way bigger. I remember when I first got my submarine, I was super excited. It was the first time I got done with all my schooling, and it was time for me to finally, get out there and put it to work. Got to my boat, and I remember walking down to it. It was just like crazy. It's going to be your life for the next few years. This is where you're going to, be on 24/7 pretty much. So I got to my boat, did all my check-ins and everything, which took like, a few days. I think it was like a week, really. You do all your check-ins and you get your qual packet and start doing all the basic stuff. What was life like on board a submarine? The big question. It's the most craziest experience ever, really. Imagine you're on a vessel, a ship that sinks on purpose. For me, I don't know, I was just the blonde in me, I guess, when I was going through schooling or even before. I never actually thought, how the submarines, like, went deeper, like how they submerged. We have tanks on board, and we fill those tanks with water to go deeper. Bring water into the boat to go deeper. It's pretty crazy, huh? Another cool thing, or I thought it was like pretty neat that we did on the boat, was we make our own oxygen. We make our own oxygen when we're underwater. Water as well. It really, the craziest thing is we could be out to sea for forever pretty much if we didn't need food or nothing like that, and something on the inside didn't break down. A submarine can be out to sea for forever, for the entirety of the boat, the entire lifespan. That's crazy. I remember my first underway. So we're going out of Groton, Connecticut, right? From there, it's a while, really, before we can go deep and submerge. So we get to, travel topside, surface, going on through the ocean and everything, piloting through there. Once we get out there, and it's my first time being underway, right? First time ever being on a submarine, period. Like I've traveled to my uncle's and toured my uncle's some, but we about to go deep. So one of the craziest things is like I'm standing in control because my job was navigation. So I'm standing there trying to be a sponge and just soak everything up that I could, about my job so I could learn fast. Standing there watching the quartermaster. And then, the officer of the deck comes down. So it gets down, he's like, last man down, hatch secured. After that, then the captain's usually like, very well. After deck, submerge the ship. And then it hits you right in the stomach. And you're like, yo, we're about to do it. The officer of deck then looks at the pilot, submerge your ship, make your depth, blah, blah, blah feet. And then the pilot's like, sounds the diving alarm. you know, dive, dive, and you feel the boat just start swaying back and forth like this. The boat just starts rocking. We're looking on the periscope and we can see like the tanks venting, shooting air out and they're filling with water. And you can feel the boat like start to rock and just like, you know, like the weight shifting. And then our nose starts going down. And then you can just feel yourself like leaning. Jackson move, that you see. That's real. That was pretty neat. Windows on the submarine too. I don't know if anybody knows that. I didn't think there was, but how it always amazed me on how we see underwater. But we can see with the periscopes, like as we're coming up. And the only time I was ever able to see any type of like aquatic life or anything like that underwater was when we were in Hawaii because the water was so clear there. Like you could see all the reef fish and stuff like that. All the different kinds of reef fish, they were swimming around us. It was pretty cool. We got dolphins that swim around us too, like jumping the bow, like as we're going out of port to go, go deep. Another part of my job was to build the bridge or rig the bridge is what we call it. So like on a submarine, you have like the sail part that sticks out of the water, and we rigged the stanchions, like the 4 poles. It was more than 4, but like the stanchion is basically like a wall, safety wall, like around the top. Well, when you go up there to rig that, you're wearing a harness, right? But it has like a little D-ring, like D-ring clip. The whole time you're up there, the boat's rocking like this, going back and forth, rocking and everything. And waves are coming over the sail, like, so from the sail where you're at to the water, it's about, I'll probably say 15, 20 foot. It's a good drop. Like, if you smack that pretty hard on top of the boat or the side of the boat from that deep, like, it's gonna hurt you pretty good. Anyways, it's just slippery and wet, like, everywhere up there. So it's hard to hold on to and everything. But anyways, whenever you're up there at night, I got to experience, it's like bioluminescent plankton, right? That was like rolling over the bow in the wash of the waves as we were surfaced one night. I'll try to find like a picture of, not my picture, but like something similar that I can show you guys so you have a visual of what it looks like. But I was like, always on, like, I was staying to watch and being quartermaster, it was part of my job to build nav plans and make sure, we're ready to be able to pull back into port and then get ready to leave to go to our next, whatever we were doing. But I was up there with the officer deck and I'm sitting there looking out, just got done rigging the bridge and he come up there. And I was sitting there looking at the wash, like the bow, and I look up and I see that little, like, blue in the water, like neon blue, like glow stick bright blue. I'm asking him, like, are you seeing this? And he's like, yeah, it's, then he told me the bioluminescent plankton or whatever the proper name for it is. But it was one of the coolest things that I seen at night. So when we're underway, a normal day-to-day like operation, as you go on watch for 8 hours. I stood quartermaster, so my job was to make sure the boat, submarine that we were navigating on track, where we were heading. Then making sure that we were in the correct depth So it's not just like driving a car, or like we need to get from point A to point B. No, it's like point A to point B to point C too. Because you can't just fly where you want to. There's certain depths that you can only operate in per the captain and then per our like operating orders. So I did that for 8 hours. Then when I would get off a watch, you go eat, right? So you eat before watch and you eat after watch. Get off watch, you eat. Then when you get done eating, you clean. So like you'll have like, depending on what day it is, because the cleanliness on the boat's like a big thing. Whenever 150 plus people are underway, if it wasn't a clean or a place, that's how you get like viruses or bacteria or whatever. So we try to minimize that. So every 8 hours, somebody's cleaning something the whole time. So when you would get done cleaning for that hour, then that was like your free time, your time off. Unless you're like the BNAV or the guy like put in my position. So, or also your time off, like you're supposed to be that time, unless you're a qualifier, you're supposed to work on quals. But like at that time, I was having to build nav plans, the whole time I was off watch. And then you're supposed to sleep for 8 hours. Supposed to. You get woke up. Hey, you got to get up and rig the bridge. You're like, what do you mean? We're not doing that for another 12 hours. You're like, no, somebody messed up. We about to go out of area. So we about to have to surface. Yep. That was something that happened. That was pretty crazy. One of the secret squirrely things about submarines, or especially nuclear powered submarines, they're powered by a nuclear reactor. A nuclear reactor. But don't worry. They said we get less radiation from it on the boat than we would on planes or anything like that. They made us wear little meters that would monitor how much radiation you got. And they would do it per quarter. I don't remember the numbers and all that or anything like that, so I'm not even going to try to explain it to you. But it was crazy. Nobody knows what it looks like, really. Like on the boat. There's only like a couple people that are even allowed to go inside of that room. And like only a few people are allowed to go inside the nuclear reactor like vault. Like the room where it's at. And see the core, like even when it's shut down, like nobody can go in it. It's always closed. And when you're on submarines, everybody has to be cleared secret at a minimum. Like only people qualified secret can be on the boat unless you're escorted in certain compartments in certain areas of the boat. And then some jobs require you to have a top secret clearance for like need to know bases. One of mine was navigation, so I had to get read into to get my top secret clearance. To get your like secret clearance or your top secret clearance, it's investigated by NCIS. NCIS, they go to your family, school, like to your jobs. They talk to your friends. And then they ask your friends for more friends, and they learn everything about you. They do a very like deep, extensive like background check. So when you're underway or in port, on duty, really, So like your bed is 3 high. So you have a top, a middle, and a bottom. And each rack, each bed, you share with 3 people, you and 2 other people. So there's always somebody sleeping in that bed. So you got to bring your own blankets or like sheets, and also like you only have like a 1.5 foot by like, I don't know, like 18 inches of area where you put your socks, your underwear, and your like uniforms for underway, and then like your cans of snuff or energy drinks or anything that you're gonna bring underway, to make you happier. People bring like switches, like Nintendo switches or an Xbox, maybe if they can find one. Not find one, but if they can find a spot like to hide it. If they were cool with an officer or something that had I don't know, they had like a space for it. I've seen people bring like all kinds of things underway. But when you're in port, you're not allowed to have any electronics underway. Phones have to stay topside, and even when we're underway, phones have to be, they can't leave your bed space unless you're listening to like music or something like that. They can't leave your pocket, especially in classified areas. Don't bring your phone at all. Same thing with like a radio room underway. Like nobody goes in there. It's kind of like the reactor room because it's privacy for everybody. Emails, everything on the boat, anything that happens on the boat, radio knows first. One of the best things about submarines, I will say, is the food. The food is pretty bomb, especially if you got some good ass cooks. Then they make your time underway way better, way better. They'll do some pretty crazy things. You'll be like, "What is this?" Say, "Eat it, eat it. Try this. Hey, try this." They're all, because underway, cooks' jobs. That's their job, is cooks. They're bored. They're always cooking up something new. Try this, try this, try this. Some crazy things. Like I can't even remember off the top of my head some of the stuff that they would just give us, but it would be good. You're out there underway. We are the emergency response, fires, floodings, any type of casualty that happens underway, hydraulic line ruptures, anything. Like being underway, a lot of times, I don't know why, but people would leave. So we had coffee stir sticks that were like wooden, like almost like glue sticks, kind of like those little wooden popsicle sticks. Yeah, like the popsicle sticks, but they were like the skinny ones. Well, some people were leaving them in their like coveralls or uniforms. Poopy suits is what we called them. When they were washing them, but when it dried, it caught on fire 3, 4 times, like underway. I've never really talked about why submarines or, why the Navy in general. A big full circle like moment when I was underway in Hawaii. My uncle, he was also in the Navy. He just retired from being a cop of his own boat. His cop qualifications, he had to ride a boat. And somehow he was able, my boat was like one of the ones that he could get. So he came on an underway. That was one of the most coolest experiences I've had. Just, somebody that I've looked up to the whole time. And we had the same job in the Navy, navigation, That he was a Navy T as well, navigation electronic technician. He was started as a young age, and then he did 20 plus years. I think he got out at 30 something plus years. was pretty cool. The whole time I was standing and watch, he would come up and, quiz me on things on the plot and stuff. Well, it's kind of hard to talk about this subject because, you can't talk about much. Submarines are classified. Well, most of the things about submarines, depth, speed, etc. But it was crazy for people on the boat because, me, I was only a petty officer, 3rd class, and he was a senior chief at the time. So when we pulled back into before we went underway, we'd get done for the work day and he would ride home with me. We'd go to like Hooters or somewhere, to eat and catch up. We did go to Hooters and it was pretty fun. But the whole time we were underway, nobody realized that he was my uncle, even though we had the same last name, until the day we were about to pull in. The acting cop is your uncle? And I was like, yeah. They're like, I didn't know. I didn't get it. We had the same last name. Obviously, I couldn't be chilling up in the chief quarters or something like that. Obviously, we're professional, and I wouldn't do that anyways. It was pretty cool. It was a good experience for both of us. So on my first boat, before we ended up going into dry dock, we got to go on a few underways. Like I say, there was a couple, me and a few other guys that had been waiting for my boat to get back from deployment because we had just got done with our schooling and got to my boat, and they had just come back from a 6-month deployment. One of the underways that we did was out, by the Bahamas and stuff. And it was pretty cool because we brought on 50 plus divers, Navy divers, and also SEALs, and then some other people, for part of the testing we were doing at that time. I don't even know what I can say, what I can't say. So it's just better to play it safe. With that being said, with bringing more people onto the boat, they needed more people to get off the boat. There's less than 15 of us. I know it didn't make sense. They're going to bring 50 plus divers onto the boat, but they're only going to send off less than 20. Chief came to me and he was like, you can get off the boat if you want to. We're only allowed to send one person, but you have to pay your own hotel. I said, okay. I said, how much is it? It was $60 a night for a hotel on base in the Bahamas. We had a small boat pick us up out in the middle of the ocean and bring us all the way back to the dock. And then we had to ride in a car. And in the Bahamas, they drive on, for us here in the U.S., would be the wrong side of the road. The wrong side, the other side. So we're in this car and he's driving on the other side of the road. And it's just when you're sitting in the car, driving on that side of the road, it just feels different. It's just probably if you got in a car with the steering wheel on the other side, it just didn't feel right. 3 nights. It was supposed to only be 3 nights. And it ended early it was supposed to be 3 days. It ended up being only 2. We got cut short a day. We were all bummed out because we're we got to go back to the boat. Anyways, we go back to the boat. And everybody hated us. They had been, I guess up the whole time we'd been gone. Not happy. They were mean mugging us and, just, we were the outcasts till we got back to port. And something else changed their mind. But it was worth it. It was definitely worth it. Shout out to y'all that were there. So I mentioned earlier how we brought divers onto the boat, right? And you're probably wondering where did they sleep? Yeah, they slip in some beds. Some slip in beds. But others slip, or many of us slip, which was arm's reach from a torpedo. Like where I was sleeping one night, I could wrap my arms and hug a torpedo if I wanted to. That's how close I was to it. Because in the torpedo room, if we're not using missiles or we're not in a super dangerous environment or we're going to plan or think we're going to need them, then we always have some that are ready at all times. But the other ones, they'll move in certain ways, and we'll use the cradles as beds too, like right next to the torpedoes. That was another like cool thing to me underway. So anytime we fired torpedoes underwater, or we were doing like training exercises, and we call them shooting slugs, water slugs. But we're shooting, basically filling torpedo tubes of water and then like shooting them out while everybody in control is following along during the training exercise. They'll drop an enemy on my plot or something, on my plot or on fire controls. And then we'll track it, virtually through all of our systems. In the torpedo room, the torpedo men will, get ready and make ready a tube, and we'll fire it at that contact for training exercises. But anytime we fire a torpedo, your ears will pop. It'll wake you up out of your sleep. You'll just jump every time. It's crazy. Like when they pop on an airplane, but it's like that every time we fire. So if the next watch, when you're supposed to be sleeping, or trying to get the very few hours of sleep that you're gonna get, you know what? They're shooting slugs the whole entire time while you're trying to sleep. Yeah, you ain't sleeping. Promise you ain't sleeping. But they say people in the military can sleep pretty much anywhere, and it's true. You just learn to fall asleep anywhere, really. Just because in boot camp they teach you about that. And I'll have a whole separate video about boot camp and how it trains you mentally. It just like reconstructs you from the ground up pretty much, but it's all a mental game. So being on board the submarine in Hawaii, I got to be a part of the world's largest naval exercise ever, which is called RIMPAC. I was there in the RIMPAC. It was 2018. People from Chile come, like Argentina, like I want to say Japan. I know Japan was there. Australia, just all kinds of different countries. And we do all these crazy like missions with them, like different operations and exercises. So it was pretty cool, seeing them, like the different navies when we're in port before the exercise, getting to meet them. What was wild to me was when we were underway during this mission or part of this exercise. Part of the exercise was for us to like go down the periscope depth and to sit there and show them what every one of our antennas looked like coming up out of the water, just so they would know what a U.S. submarine looked like, the different antennas. I'm talking about all kinds of countries that we used to not be cool with. Just, it always blew my mind. But we did some fun things too, like with like a P-3 Orion, like an anti-submarine plane. We would go like at periscope depth and they would spot us from above, and we could hear that they spot us through their radar systems and stuff. And like they would drop sonar buoys down into the water so that they could reach. So in a plane, right, you can only reach or view down to what's below you. But when you drop something down to that sonar buoy, then now they can go deeper and they can see like below the water. So we'd come up to periscope depth and they would spot us, and then we'd then go down deep and then run and then come back up, and we'd do that for a while. We called it like a peek and run, because we'd come up, peek, like see where they're at, and then, like run away from them. It was a fun little exercise that we did. Being on a submarine is cold. It's cold and dark all the time, pretty much in most spaces. Except I had the pleasure of being on a Virginia class, and I got to go ride on a 688 class. So 688 class, like control room is dark, like pitch black dark at night. Like you can't see nothing. You can't see what's going on to the person next to you. And on a Virginia class, since our periscopes it's all digital. It's not like an actual periscope. So control doesn't have to be like super, super dark. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast about my life being on board the submarine and everything. I'm trying to share with you guys more and more as we go. So make sure you guys subscribe. Everyone has a story. I'm sharing you mine. See you guys next time. Peace.